Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. All rise for the flag salute.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A moment of silence to remember the service and sacrifices of the armed service members who protect our nation and the first responders who protect our nation. Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Here.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Here.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Here.
Councilmember Smith? Here. Councilmember Sackett?
Here.
Councilmember Kelly?
Here.
Vice President Abrahamson? Here. President Jedinak?
Here. This meeting was advertised in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6. Notice was published in the Township's official newspapers, the Daily Record on November 21st and the Star Ledger on November 14th. Notice was posted on the official bulletin board of Rockaway Township. Item number 6, designation of Sergeant at Arms. Township Code 2-5.15, decorum. While the council is in session, the member shall preserve order and decorum. The council president, at his or her discretion, shall direct the chief of the police or such other person in the police department as he may designate to be the sergeant at arms of the council meeting. The sergeant at arms shall employ reasonable means to maintain the proper order and decorum consistent with accepted standards. The accepted standard is that members of the audience are asked to keep their volume to an inaudible level so that business can be conducted and so that those who are speaking can be clearly heard. If an individual becomes audible, the sergeant at arms is expected to ask the individual to reduce their volume to an inaudible level or ask the individual to leave the meeting room as necessary. I thought there's the chief. Chief, are you serving as the sergeant at arms for this meeting?
No, Mr. President. Lieutenant Paul Riley will be assuming those duties.
Okay, Lieutenant Riley, you heard the accepted standard that I read?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Before we proceed with the rest of the agenda, I see we have Mr. Perrone here representing the Township Attorney instead of Mr. Iacofano. A question for the Township Attorney. With regard to Mr. Iacofano's previous conversations with Mr. Schmidt that were a topic of the previous meeting, is there anything that this council needs to address regarding the October 23rd meeting, the November 16th meeting, or this meeting here tonight?
I'm not certain what you're referring to, though, specifically. You're talking about minutes of the meetings, or are you talking about...
Holding the meeting, the holding of the meeting. October 23rd, November 16th, November 27th today. Is there anything that we need to be aware of or do?
Respecting the Open Public Meetings Act? Is that what you're asking?
Sure.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And there's nothing that Mr. Iacofano relayed to you that we should be aware of or be concerned with?
There was nothing that I was instructed to address respecting a question regarding the Open Public Meetings Act.
Okay. And with regard to this meeting, should we proceed as planned?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
With regard to the agenda, I'd like to take item 10D up next, which is the mayor's presentation of life-saving awards for the Route 80 motor vehicle accident that took place on October 19th, 2018. Mr. Mayor, are you prepared to do that now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, then you have the floor.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. Is Bob Shear here? I'm sorry. Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It is not often that any mayor, or township for that matter, has a chance to recognize volunteer firefighters and police officers for acts of valor. The act of valor which these first responders are being presented with tonight is for a selfless act with the saving of a human life on Friday, October 19th, 2018. I would like to call Police Chief Marty McParland, Police Chief Conrad Pepperman, Rockaway Borough Mayor Russ Gruder, and Councilman Tom Mulligan we have? Fire Chief Mike Heath and Director Shear we have up here already. And I'm going to leave it to Director Shear to make the presentations with the description of the events that happened on that Friday. And I'm positive that you all agree with me in congratulating these brave first responders at the end of the presentations. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome. On October 19, 2018, around 3 p.m., the Rockaway Township Fire Department was busy and excited to be accepting its new KME fire engine at the Hibernia Fire Company. At the same time, the Rockaway Township and Borough Police Departments were conducting normal routine patrols. At 3:20 p.m., fire and EMS personnel were alerted to a reported vehicle under a tractor trailer on fire with possible entrapment. Deputy Chief Joe Aragona arrived on scene and established Route 80 command. Moments later, Fire Chief Mike Heath arrived and took command of the incident and immediately saw that people were using chains attached to a New Jersey State DOT pickup truck, attempting to pull the vehicle out from underneath the tractor trailer as it was burning. The decision to do this was collective effort by John Clark, a Rockaway Township firefighter, and Chief Tyler Wargo from the Flanders Fire Department, who had stopped at the incident. Once the vehicle was pulled from the tractor trailer, the front engine and the front passenger areas became well involved in flames, while the victim, Mr. Hussam Orbi, was still trapped. New Jersey State Police, Rockaway Township Police, and Borough stopped vehicles asking for extinguishers to attempt to knock the fire down. All the while, Mr. Orbi was trapped in his vehicle crying for help, stating that he could not breathe. By this time, New Jersey State Police had Route 80 closed in both directions, for smoke was drifting, causing a total blackout across the highway. This closure made it rough access for fire, police, and EMS help to get to the scene. Upon my arrival on the scene, with the assistance of Deputy Chief Joe Aragona, we used pry bars and Halligan tools to attempt to force open the driver's door to reach Mr. Orbi. Unfortunately, this proved fruitless. As we kept attempting to open the door, we continued reached into the vehicle to keep in contact with Orbi, as he knew we were doing all we could do. Upon arrival of Engine 42 from Birchwood Company 4, firefighters immediately started to extinguish the fire in the front driver's area first. Moments later, Rescue 41 from Company 4 arrived, and members utilized spreaders and cutters to open the driver's door. We then utilized the spreaders to lift the roof off of Mr. Orbi's face, which upon impact with the tractor trailer bent down and acted as a shield, preventing flames from direct contact with Mr. Orbi's face and chest. Basically, just to give you a description, the roof of he was in a Jeep Grand Cherokee, came down and pressed against his chest. And to give a description, as the cab of the car was fully involved in flames, and the hood and the roof protected his face. It was to the point where his face was so protected his beard did not even burn. At this time, the seatbelts were cut away, and a steering wheel cutter was utilized to cut the steering away from Mr. Orbi, and he was extricated from the vehicle, still conscious, alive, and vocal. While the extrication of Mr. Orbi was underway, simultaneously, Engine 51 from White Meadow Lake Company 5 arrived and assisted with water supply to engine 42 to assist in the extinguishment of the vehicle fire. Concurrently, Tender 12 from Hibernia Company 1 arrived and assisted and investigated and checked for any fire and/or fire extension to the tractor trailer in which the car was pinned under. This was completed by utilizing K-12 saws to cut open the tractor trailer panels and check for extension. Once extricated, Mr. Orby was turned over to St. Clair's EMS, and along with paramedics, Mr. Orby was stabilized while New Jersey State Police provided support and communications to land Air 1, a medical helicopter, on Route 80. Air 1 transported Mr. Orby to the Trauma Center at Morristown Hospital to be stabilized, and ultimately he was transported to the St. Barnabas Burns Foundation. Unfortunately, upon my visit to the Burns Foundation to check on Mr. Orby's condition, I was informed that Mr. Orby had passed away from his burns 2 days later, Sunday, October 21st. Even though some may have doubts, I'd like to remind every emergency responder here tonight that if it weren't for our actions on that Friday, provide for a great, safe life, it was, for a safe life, for it was not for the combined team efforts of everybody that was on those engines, the police department, the state police, and everybody else, we would not have provided Mr. Orby's family the time or the opportunity to say goodbye and give prayers to their loved one before he passed. With that said, Mayor, Council, Chief Heath, Chief McParland, Mayor, Chief, I would like to present the following emergency responders who on October 19, 2018 went above and beyond the call of duty by placing their own lives at risk to save another. Further, I'd like to inform everybody that I have submitted the actions of this emergency responders on that Friday to the Morris County 200 Club and the St. Barnabas Valor Committee for recognition of their valor. Gentlemen, when I call your name up, please come up and receive your red and white life-saving citation bar award recognizing you for this selfless act with the saving of a human life. First, I'd like to call up Deputy Chief Joe Aragona. Captain Tom Garvey. Lieutenant Robert Klimek. Lieutenant Rich Evans. Firefighter Scott Lerner. Firefighter Michael Klein. Firefighter Bert Parks. Rockaway Borough Police Lieutenant Jeffrey Crawford. Rockaway Township Patrolman Gregory Albert. And he's already up here, Fire Chief Mike Heath, and myself, Director Robert Sheard. Personnel that were also involved in this incident that are not present here tonight was Assistant Chief Company 1 Chris Bush, Lieutenant Steve Sperry, Firefighter John Clark, Firefighter Mike Gast, Firefighter Tom Gazy, Firefighter Kevin Henry, Firefighter Robert Guyry, Firefighter Jason Jenkins, Firefighter Gary Bisher, Firefighter Steve DeSalvia, as I mentioned before, Flanders Fire Chief Tyler Wargrove, who stopped on his way home. We have Rockaway Township Police Detective Ken Brock, who also all participated in the life-saving award of this gentleman, but unfortunately could not be here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. You want to do 2 rows?
Everybody laid your body. Come closer.
Chief, why don't you guys come around that side with the uniforms? This way we'll squeeze everybody in.
How are you? Great.
We have one more presentation tonight. I understand we have the members of the Rockaway Township Sons of the American Legion Squadron, number 344, here to make a presentation to the Rockaway Township Police Department. At this time, I would like to invite Squadron Adjutant Michael Wosmer and members of the American Legion, along with the Chief of Police, up here to make the presentation to the Township.
That's a tough act to follow. I think we should have went first. We're Sons of the American Legion, Squadron 344, Rockaway Township. We're sons and grandsons of veterans who honorably served our country during specific time periods set forth by the bylaws of the American Legion. Our goals as an organization are to serve veterans and veterans organizations and our own post in the community. Members are made up of community members, your neighbors. We have current police officers in our membership, retired police officers, town workers, even former Mayor Mike Datcherson was a member. Some of our community activities that we participate in, we give an annual scholarship to a Morris Hill senior and also to a Morris Knowles senior. For those of you who have children that play football, you notice our banner up at the fence on Peterson Field as we support the Rockaway football program. This year we donated to the Girl Scouts, who are putting in first aid kits with tourniquets in them at all the grammar schools and the middle school. We have our wreaths across Rockaway where we decorate veterans' headstones with a wreath with a red ribbon. This year we'll be doing Marcelo Union Cemetery. The Scouts are involved with that, with us. We also place flags on the veterans' headstones with the Scouts also helping us. Marcelo Union again this year. The Scouts are very involved with us. We have our Flag Day ceremony where we retire worn and tattered flags. The Scouts are involved. They also march in our Memorial Day parade. We're able to do all these community activities because of the support from the community. We have many fundraisers during the year which are very well supported from the members of the community. We have our annual Christmas tree sale, which is going on right now down the street at the post. We have an Easter plant sale, we have a Mother's Day plant sale and hanging baskets. We do a casino trip, a Yankee trip, and so on and so on. And the support from the community allows us to generate the money to help the veterans programs and to give back to the community. And that's why we're here tonight. We're here tonight because the Sons of the American Legion has donated 2 families of CPR resuscitation mannequins to the police department. The men and women of the police department are the first people on the scene when there's an accident, as you just heard the people that were here prior to us. They are the first people at your house when you have a medical emergency. In a strange twist of fate, one of our own members, a couple years ago, his life was saved by a Rockaway Township police officer who performed CPR in his house. So we feel that the Rockaway Township Police Department needs these mannequins to keep current with their CPR and the renewal. So Chief McFarland, without further ado, and to finally stop talking, we present, Sons of the American Legion, present 2 families of these mannequins. By the way, Chief McFarland happens to be our commander of the Sons of the American Legion.
On behalf of the decisions, thank you.
On behalf of the Township of Rockaway and the Township Police Department, I'd like to thank you for your generous donation of this equipment. The training aids will be used by the officers to maintain proficiency in such life-saving skills as rescue breathing, CPR, and automatic defibrillator usage. Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, we have the approval of the minutes. Councilmember Kelly, did you have something?
I did. You know, a lot of the members here may not know, we have Chief Peppermint from Rockaway Borough here. We had Sergeant Schwartzman was here as well, and Police Officer Flynn. And I just wanted to let everybody know, since we had a couple of issues that were brought up about the unfortunate passing of the individual they tried to save on Route 80, Rockaway Borough had a very successful story of Patrolman Flynn went and saved a 14-month baby boy choking, performed a Heimlich, and brought that baby back to life. And it was a miracle of the timing and the experience and the knowledge that Officer Flynn knew, reacted to, and even though Rockaway Borough is not Rockaway Township, but they're a component and they're next to us, we work with them. I thought it was important to also inform the public of that heroic act that took place. And I just want to say special thanks, Chief.
Very much. I'd like to thank the mayor and the governing body for holding this tonight, and Chief Martin Carl, and it was a real honor. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have the approval of the minutes, items A through F, which we will make with one motion. Minutes of the regular meeting of August 7th, special meeting of September 20th, closed session of September 20th, special meeting of September 26th, regular meeting of October 11th, and regular meeting of October 23rd. There were some corrections made with regard to the recording of votes. And at least one request made by the business administrator for an edit as well. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
A second.
Moved by Abrahamson, second by Kelly. Is there any discussion with regard to this? Councilmember Sackett.
Just a couple of things real quick. Thank you for giving me the minutes this time for the closed session, because you haven't given me the past few meetings, so thank you for actually.
Mr. Kelly, you'll have an opportunity after Mr. Sackett.
Also on the October 23rd meeting.
Microphone.
On the October 23rd meeting.
I think so.
Hello? Okay. Okay, we're here. On the October 23rd meeting, since we had about 20 edits or so, just was wondering, question for the clerk. Did you personally write the minutes, or did someone else write them? Because it seems like from some of these emails I'm looking at, looks like in response to feedback, what were the changes that were actually made from the original minutes? I went through them, but it seems like they're all over the place. I don't know why they had to keep being changed. So I don't know if you listened to the tape from the meeting. I just want to know, did you write the minutes or did someone else write them? You wrote them.
Councilmember Saget, just for your benefit and the benefit of the public, the process with regard to the minutes is that they're drafted by the clerk with the aid of the audio. The draft is provided to the council members and the administration. Feedback comes from all parties. Mrs. Seeger can attest to providing an edit, correct, to one of the sets of minutes that we're considering today?
No,
You didn't have any changes that were made?
not that I'm aware of.
No? I thought there was a change with regard to attendance at a meeting. Okay.
I can't hear.
Typically, that is the process. My understanding was that there was a set of minutes where you had attended a meeting, where the minutes said that you attended a meeting, but you actually only intended to attend the meeting?
That was
me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I intended, I just wanted to report on
Okay.
the meeting was held.
So that is the general process, though. The drafts are provided, and feedback on those drafts is given to the clerk, and the clerk makes amendments.
Are the minutes from the 23rd the ones we received at 3 o'clock today? Is that the final minutes, 3 o'clock?
Are there any emails with any further edits after 3 p.m.?
That was the final one?
I believe the clerk said no.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to table the minutes from October 23rd.
I'll second it.
Clerk, please call the roll on the motion made by Councilmember Sackett to table the minutes of October 23rd, which is item F.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember sorry. Councilmember Palumbo?
No.
Councilmember Smith?
No.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
No.
Vice President Abrahamson?
No.
President Jenanak?
No.
That's a surprise.
Sergeant at Arms,
What?
Chief, would you please find the Sergeant at Arms or serve in his stead, and please bring the room to order? Chief, while he's gone, would you please bring the room to order? We have 5 no, 3 yes, 0 abstentions. The motion table does not carry. Is there any other discussion with regard to the minutes? Councilmember Smith and then Councilmember Kelly.
I think Mrs. Smith's going to reiterate the same thing I would.
Councilmember Smith.
I think Mr. Sackett. Sorry. Usually I have a loud mouth. I think that Mr. Sackett needs to be advised that you only receive copies of the minutes of closed session prior to them being approved if you were in that meeting. If you weren't in that meeting, you get them after the approval.
Thank you.
Because you wouldn't know what went on in there anyway.
But I got them this time.
Excuse me, Councilmember Sackett. Councilmember Smith, thank you for reminding us all of that. At previous meetings, I had also reminded us of that. That has been the practice for the 6 years that I've been on this council, that closed sessions are provided after the, are provided to the members who weren't there following that. So, is there any other discussion on any of the minutes before us?
No.
Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll on items A through F. So that there's no confusion, a yes vote will pass these minutes, a no vote will not pass these minutes, and you can always abstain. Clerk.
Councilmember Quinn?
I will abstain.
Councilmember Friedlander?
You want one vote on all of them, or we break
So
it down?
if let's return to Councilmember Quinn. Councilmember Quinn, you can vote yes, no, or abstain on all items A through F. If you would like to vote differently on any items, then you can single that item out. For instance, if you'd like to vote, just for the benefit of everyone else, if you'd like to vote yes on items A through E, you can state that and then state abstain on item F. We'll take your vote when you're ready, Councilmember Quinn.
I'm ready. A, yes. E, yes. All right, the rest I will abstain.
So we have yes on A and E and an abstention on B, C, D, and F by Councilmember Quinn. Councilmember Fried, I'm sorry, Clerk.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes on A, yes on B, C, the closed session, no, D, no, E, yes, and F, no.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes, and all.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes on all.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes on A. B and C abstain. D, no. E, yes. F, no.
Councilmember Sackett, you're quick on that. I heard yes on A, abstain on B and C, and would you mind repeating the rest?
Sure. D, no. E, yes. F, no.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes on all.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes on all.
President Jedinak?
Yes on all. I count at least 5 votes on all 6 of the minutes, so all the minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is council appointments. Item.
President, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Kelly, do you have?
Just the one vote. Could you please give me Mr. Sackett's vote again, please? From A through F.
Are we talking about the approval of the minutes?
Correct.
Okay. So I will read them to you, but just so you're aware, they will also be in the minutes as recorded by the clerk.
Just for Mr.
Councilmember, excuse me, clerk, could you please read back Mr. Sackett's vote on the minutes?
A, yes. B, abstain. C, abstain. D, no. E, yes. F, no.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, council appointments. We have item A, appointment to fill vacancy of council member at large. This is the vacancy created by the recent election of Mayor Puzio, who was sworn in last Tuesday, a week ago.
Council President, I'd like to...
Before we continue, I just want to explain to everyone the process, and then Councilmember Palumbo will come back to you. The process with regard to the vacancy is that upon the certification swearing in of Councilmember Puzio, as mayor, the position of councilmember at large became vacant. The Republican County Committee then had 15 days from that date to meet to select 3 names to present to this council. The county committee met, as I understand it, on November the 20th, the same night as the swearing in, and produced 3 names to the council, which were delivered to the clerk's office on the 21st, which was the next day, last Wednesday. And then the council then has 15 days from that date to select one of the 3 names. So we have 3 names before us. The order of the names provided is the order that they were provided from the Republican County Committee. and they are in the order of highest vote getter among the county committee to lowest vote getter among the county committee. The names in order are Joseph Jackson, Douglas Brooks Jr., and Adam Salberg. So with that, Councilmember Palumbo.
I'd like to make a motion to have Joe Jackson fill out Mayor Puzio's vacated council seat.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion by Palumbo, and we have a second by Smith. Is there any discussion on that appointment? Councilmember Sackett?
Council President, so we're just going in order?
We are going in order. So to answer that question more thoroughly, if we don't have a majority, so if we have a majority vote, then that individual will be seated to fill the vacancy. If we don't, then we will go to the next one and the next one until all three are exhausted. If this council doesn't have a majority vote for any one of the three, then it will go back, the decision will go back to the county committee. And my understanding is that they will have another 15 days from this date to select one of the three names. And then if they don't select it, it comes back to the council again, as I understand it. Does that answer your question, Councilman Sackett?
Yes.
Okay, is there any further discussion with regard to the motion before us for this appointment? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
No.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
No.
Councilmember Kelly?
Absolutely.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jenanak?
Yes. I count 6 yes, 2 no, 0 abstentions. Would Mr. Jackson please come up to the dais? We need to swear you in. And Mr. Jackson. And I should say congratulations to Mr. Jackson. And if you would please bring up your family and anyone else you'd like to have up here for your swearing in. And he does look great. Mr. Jackson. Congratulations, Jackson. Would you like the clerk to swear you in? Okay. Do you have a preference on Bible? Okay. Is there anything else? Congratulations before me. You good? Okay. And right after we swear you in, we'll take a brief recess. So if there are any photos that you'd like to take or anybody who would like to congratulate Mr. Jackson. You feeling better? Yeah, come right up so the cameras can all see you. The center is the best spot.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully.
That I will faithfully.
Impartially and justly.
Impartially and justly.
Perform all the duties.
Perform all the duties.
Of the office of Rockaway Township Council.
The office of Rockaway Township Council.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
And that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of New Jersey.
And the Constitution of the State of New Jersey.
And that I will bear true faith.
And I will bear true faith.
And allegiance to the same.
And allegiance to the same.
And to the governments established.
And to the governments established.
In the United States and in this state.
In the United States and this state.
Under the authority of the people.
Under the authority of the people. So help me God.
Congratulations again. We will take a 5-minute recess until 8:15. So just to advise the public, we're having a technical difficulty with our audio recording device. The business administrator is working on it with the council assistant, so we'll convene once we have that resolved so that we can make sure to record the meeting. So we are back from recess. It is 8:19 p.m. We had some technical difficulties with our audio recording device. My understanding is that it froze when we paused it previously, but we believe we captured everything up until we went into recess. I see the council assistant nodding it affirmatively. Thank you, and thank you to the business administrator for assisting with that issue. We are still in council appointments. We have no appointments for items B, D, E, F, and G, but we do have 2 appointments under C, EMS. The 2 individuals are Amanda Cluse and Emmanuel Argueta. Thank you to both of them. We will have a motion. We need to have a motion on them. Would anyone like to move?
I'll make a motion.
Both names? Motion by Friedlander. I believe I heard a second by Councilmember Kelly.
That's correct on both.
No, and abstain. So, so for the benefit of our newest council member, I'll just go through this slowly. We are on 8C. We have the 2 appointments. We have a motion by Councilmember Friedlander and a second by Councilmember Kelly. I will ask the clerk to call the roll. The clerk will go through each council member's name. The votes are yes, no, or abstain. In this case, we have 2 items. So if you would like to vote differently on one, simply identify your vote and which one you're voting differently on. So clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jedenak?
Yes. I count 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. Motion passes, and thank you to both of our appointees for their service to our community. Next on the agenda, we have the consent agenda. Resolutions R18-186, R18-187, 188, 189, 193, 194, 195, 196, 197, and 198. I would like to remove item C, or resolution R18-188 from the consent agenda, and we will take it up immediately following the consent agenda. Does anyone else have anything else that they would like removed from the consent agenda for further discussion?
I'm sorry.
Item C, 188 is the item that I've removed. We will take it up as soon as we're done with the consent agenda.
And the Council President, R18-187.
We will remove R18-187 and take that up after the consent agenda as well. Are there any other resolutions that anyone would like to be removed?
One more, Council President, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Kelly?
It's R18-186, which would be A.
A. Okay. So for the benefit of the public and our newest council member, the consent agenda is typically moved, all the items on the consent agenda are moved with 1 motion and 1 second and voted on as a block. Because it's a consent agenda, there's typically no discussion, so if there is a desire for any discussion, a council member simply requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda so that it can be discussed separately. And so we do one thing at a time. We remove the items, and then we vote on the consent agenda to get that out of the way, and then we continue with the items that have been removed from the consent agenda. Are there any other items for removal for further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll for the consent agenda. I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion for the consent agenda by Council Vice President Abrahamson and second by Councilmember Palumbo. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Abstain.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jetenak?
Yes. I count 8 yes, 0 no, 1 abstention. The consent agenda is passed. So we have, next we'll take up Resolution R18-186, which was removed from the consent agenda, a resolution authorizing the Davis Vision Incorporated contract. Councilmember Kelly. So in order to have discussion, we need a motion on it. So I'm going to ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second for 186?
I'll second it.
So motion by Kelly, second by Abrahamson on 186. We're now in discussion. Councilmember Kelly, you asked for it to be removed for further discussion.
I do, and this is just directed, I guess, the individuals would be Mrs. Seeger and for Mrs. Palmieri, our CFO. The resolution authorizing the Davis Vision Incorporated contract is part of our ancillary benefits that the employees receive.
Yes.
And on page 62 of our budget that we had of this year, I'm not sure that you would have it in front of you, but the numbers of that amount were $69,000 for the Davis Vision for the year.
I don't have it in front of me, but if you're looking at it, I'm sure you're correct.
And what is the increase that we have from that?
I have to pull the resolution. It wasn't in my packet. Just one thing. It wasn't in my packet. Does it say right in the resolution? You have it? Thank you. It was very minimal, if I remember correct, but I don't have it with me. Sorry.
But it was an increase?
I think it was an increase, very slight.
Now, this is something that's part of the state health benefit plan, or is this something that's outside of the state health benefit plan?
Outside the state health benefits.
And are all employees eligible?
If your full-time employees are eligible.
Part-time employees aren't?
If they're working under 25 hours a week, I believe is the number.
Councilmember Kelly, can I just interrupt you for one moment? Sure. Does the administration have a copy of the resolution in front of them?
I just got it.
Okay. It was on the table.
Yeah, it wasn't in my packet. I don't know why. Maybe I misplaced it.
Chairman. You got 18 years.
It's an increase, I know. It's a very slight
Please continue.
So in any event, I have a question that, are any part-time employees eligible for this?
Part-time employees under 25 hours a week, I believe, is the threshold.
Any exemptions?
Eligible council members would be considered. If they were grandfathered in, yes.
How could they be grandfathered in? The grandfathering would be under the state health benefit plan rather than an individual ancillary benefit package.
I know that they're offered medical, prescription, dental, and vision if they were grandfathered in.
Through whom, though?
Through the policy.
Policy?
The personnel policy? Yes.
Do you know the actual page of the policy?
No, I don't.
But we're clear that under 5214-1726 or 1725, that these are not part of the state health benefit plan.
They're not part of the state health benefit plan.
And our policy states that we offer health benefits, ancillary health benefits to our elected officials.
I'd have to refer to the policy to quote it exactly, but I know that council members who were grandfathered in continued to receive all 4 benefits.
And what would be the grandfathering time frame?
When they were elected as council members. I believe it's 2010 or 11.
But that's the state health benefit plan.
But we treat all 4 pieces as a whole.
But it's not governed under statute, though.
I'm just going by what the policy is. That's the way that's the policy that has been in place since I'm here.
But we have
before I'm here.
Just so I make sure that this is a written policy that we can look at. It's something tangible. Because what you're quoting me is basically the provisions under the Title 52, which are ancillary benefits, are not part of Title 52. Would that be accurate?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Ancillary is separate from dental, from medical and prescription.
And there's no statutory requirement that ancillary benefits are offered?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
And Councilmember Kelly, we do have later on the agenda for discussion items related to the policy and procedure manual, so presumably those can be looked at as part of that discussion. Do you have any other comments or questions about R18186?
No, I just was questioning the increase in the eligibility of full-time, part-time employees, okay, including elected officials.
Ms. Palmieri, you mentioned 4 components for benefits. What are those 4?
Medical, major medical, prescription, dental, and vision.
So major medical is the state health benefits plan?
Yes.
Prescription is
with Benecard Services.
Which is not the state health benefits plan?
Correct.
And the third?
The third is Davis Vision and Delta Dental.
So Vision, which is not part of state health benefits plan, and Delta Dental, which is also not the state health benefits plan. Okay.
And I ask one more question.
Councilmember Kelly.
And Mrs. Palmieri, with the, we've opted out of any ancillary plans that the state offers. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Kelly's questions jogged my memory as I was reviewing this resolution. It's for a 3-year contract?
Yes.
Which expired on March 31st of this year?
Yes.
So what benefits, how have employees been getting benefits since April 1st?
They've been getting these benefits.
Without a contract in place?
At the time, there was somebody else's administrator and didn't put it on, and when I went to pay a bill, I noticed that there was not a resolution. So I've had this on the agenda for the last couple of meetings, but they've been canceled. So it's postponed it more than it should be.
What's the first submission that you made of this resolution to the clerk?
I don't have that in front of me.
So we had, I'll get to you, I see, well, thank you. With regard to, excuse me, Mr. Peron, I'll come back to you. Okay. I saw you. And Mr. Puzio, I saw you as well, I'll come back to you. The most recent meeting that we had that was canceled was the November 8th meeting. We did have a meeting on October 23rd, and we haven't had a meeting canceled since May. I believe.
Oh, no,
End of May. So, and this is expired as of March 31st. So
Correct.
there've
Like
been.
I said, I wasn't the business administrator at that time, and when I went to sign the bill, I noticed that it never got past the contract, so I corrected the situation and put it on the agenda.
And when did you notice this?
In probably October, did I send it to you?
Okay, so you noticed in October, presumably after the 23rd meeting? Because it would have been on the agenda for the 23rd?
Yes.
Okay, which was the last meeting.
Wait, Carl's correcting me.
Mr.
I
Perone?
have some emails I can help you with.
Sure.
Here,
I was, first of all, I don't know what the number was. What was allocated? Because I have a total
This is
number.
resolution 186.
Oh, but I'm saying it was 69,000, did you say, Mr. Kelly?
No, Mr. Perone, I was talking about the budget that we had that was for 2018.
That was allocated towards?
It would be page 62 of that budget, and it's identified as group insurance. And the account number is 01.
What's the allocation? Did you say you say a number?
I said a number of the amount of money of $69,000.
Okay. All right, because the reason I'm saying that is Davis Vision, I'm looking at an email that I got from a guy named Mark Edwards who does all the insurance for the town.
What was the date of that email? The date of that email?
October 19th.
Okay. Mark Evans?
I got the,
Thank you.
I got the job. I
Thank
started investigating. I wanted to get information relative to what was involved.
Yeah, so the most recent council meeting we had following the 19th was the 23rd. It sounds like it just wasn't discovered before the 23rd meeting, and we didn't have a November 8th meeting. So this is the most recent meeting after that contact, but please continue.
Absolutely, because on October 25th, that's when I completed the resolution that's before you.
Okay.
And sent it to whomever. But the point I was making is that the annual premium is $39,071. That was given to me by Mark Edwards for Davis Vision, 274 covered employees. I called him up and he gave me those individual numbers that you see for family, etc. And that's why you see those in the resolution. At that point, there was also a letter from someone, whose name I can't remember, who is a principal of Davis Vision, that confirmed the numbers. And I thought I included that. I usually include that. I usually include a reference somewhere to a letter that I've read or whatever. So, yeah, the 25th of October, though, would have been the first time that I would have completed the resolution and forwarded it. I don't know if I hope that's helpful.
Well, it is helpful, Mr. Perone, because basically what you're saying is it was really acknowledged on the 19th of October.
Well,
that's your first email from Mr. Edwards that I had asked you about. But you heard Mrs. Seeger said that this has been going on for several meetings, trying to get it on the agenda. So if we've only had one meeting after the 19th, which was the 23rd, we did have the meeting, and then we had a cancellation on November 8th. When was this actually put on the agenda to look at after this thing's been voided since the 31st of March, right?
Yeah, I think Councilmember Kelly, that from what I heard, Mr. Perone stated that he completed the resolution on the 25th and submitted it for inclusion on the next meeting agenda, which would have been the 8th of November, which was canceled, and then this was the next meeting thereafter. So that's how we are. That's how we're here today.
That conflicts to what was originally stated by our administrator.
Yeah, it's different than what we
I just submitted. I don't designate which meeting it should go on.
Councilmember.
Well, it would be impossible for it to be on any meeting prior to the completion of the resolution, I would imagine, right?
Right. It wasn't getting on any earlier than the 25th of October.
I'm just concerned with getting it done. When it passes.
I'm sorry. Please continue. No, please continue. No, I thought Mr. Perone was still speaking.
No, I don't know when it's going to be on a meeting. Somebody gives me a job to do, I do it. You know?
Okay. Mr. Puzia, did you have anything you wanted?
No, I just was going to refer to our town attorney that he had information. I want to make sure that he had a chance to get that.
Okay, thank you. So I am concerned that when we went from April 1st through October 19th without being aware of coverage for our employees for their vision care, I guess it was nice of the vendor to continue to extend that coverage to them during that time period, but hopefully this is something we'll have on our calendar for 3 years from now. That's the contract term?
Correct.
Okay. Are there any other questions about Resolution 186?
No, I have no more further questions.
Okay, if not, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
186 for the vision.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett,
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson,
Yes.
President Jedinak.
Yes, I count 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. Resolution is passed. Next on the agenda, we have Resolution R18-187, authorizing the award of a contract to Bennett Card Services LLC for the Township's prescription plan for the period of June 1, 2018 through May 31, 2019. Is there a motion? Discussion? We will have discussion following.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Smith, second by Abrahamson. We are now in discussion on this. I heard Councilmember Kelly.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask some similar questions with Mrs. Palmieri and Mrs. Seeger. We have this plan from the period of June 1st, 2018 to May 31st, 2019.
Excuse me?
We have the Bennett Card Services LLC for the Township's prescription plan for the period of June 1st, 2018
Yes.
to May 31st, 2019.
Yes.
Is it currently expired now?
Yes. The reason, what is
Expired May 31, 2018.
it's the same situation. We noticed them at the same time. We did research to make sure that they weren't put on the agenda. And then Mr. Perone had conversations with Mr. Edwards and myself, and then we prepared the resolutions for as early as we could.
So
Correct the issue.
the 10/19 this year with Mr. Edwards, those conversations or emails were addressing both of these plans?
Correct. Correct.
Well, wait, I don't know about that. They may have.
Mr. Kelly, do you have any?
I do, yeah. And what we had for the recommended for the budget and requested for that was $2,187,000 for this plan. Is there an increase to that?
There's a 7% increase on.
7.1% it says on the resolution from the previous contract.
And since this being prescription, again, from our original resolution where we opted out of prescription from the state health benefit plan, this is an ancillary plan that's not part of the state health benefit plan?
Correct.
And who are the eligible employees for that?
I have 265 covered employees on my email. The other one had 274. I don't know where the differential lies. It's 9 people.
But again, the eligibility, Mr. Perone?
I don't determine the eligibility in that, that's not for me to determine. And neither is it for me to determine who to do business with, but the local public contracts law allows a municipality to deal with a particular insurance agent. Mr. Poff had established a relationship with this gentleman, Mr. Edwards, who goes out and he gets quotes for different insurance on an annual basis. I shouldn't say annual because sometimes they're 2 or 3 years where they'll actually hold a premium for that long. And what he does is he comes back with reports to, I would assume, Mr. Brewer at the time, and provides him with information as to what the various quotations are, and then they make a deal based on that. Just so you know, the annual premium now, as I understand it, at least from Mr. Edwards' information, was $1,950,072. $1,950,072.
So it's going down. It's not going up.
Well, it's what it is. I don't.
You said it was a 7.1.
Insurance rates do rise. We don't
If you're
control it.
comparing it to the budget, a budget is an estimated guess
No, I
of what the
understand.
cost is going to be. So obviously, it was lower than what we budgeted for.
So
But
just-
it was but it was an increase over last year by 7.1% increase.
Right, that's why I was asking you of the increase of that. I know we had budgeted there, but has it gone over that? Or is it less than that?
No.
No, it hasn't, but the 7.1 increase, I think, it applies because I think they held the same rate for 3 years.
An increase is an increase, I mean, regardless of...
Well, yeah, but I'm saying...
It could be more
I'm saying the
participants, it could be a whole host of reasons, right?
The way Edwards explained it to me is that the reason it was as much as 7% was because they had fixed the price at 3 years and not raised it for that time. But, it was being raised, but not to Rockaway.
And we didn't use anybody else to get any quotes other than Mr. Edwards?
He does, he gets the quote.
He gets the quotes. And it's a paid service that we do for Mr. Edwards? We pay Mr. Edwards for the service?
I think he gets a rate, but I couldn't tell you honestly.
Okay.
No, I don't know. But again, he was somebody that Mr. Poff was using, and he just continued to work with Mr. Brewer.
Excuse me, one at a time, please.
And the eligibility, again, was the initial question. I mean, I thank you for the information that you were giving me, but what employees are eligible?
It's the same as Ms. Palmieri explained for the days.
So full-time and part-time with a minimum requirement of 25 hours?
I believe it's 25.
And again, it's not being part of the state health benefit plan?
Correct.
And then this would be also for the prescription, it would be part of our policy procedure to identify that even elected officials receive benefits?
Correct.
Even prescription? Even including prescription?
All four pieces that I described before.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kelly, is it okay if we take a few more questions from some other councilmembers?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Jackson, I think you had a comment? If you would please, pull the microphone.
Usually the health broker gets paid, he gets a piece of the premium from the insurance company, so the township, I don't think, would pay him any money for his services.
And so related to that, I actually had a question for the administration. So I see here on the resolution, it says that Mr. Edwards is with Financial Benefits Research Group, so he's, that is the company that is providing the service, but the vendor is the vendor Benecard, and in the other case, the vendor is Davis Vision Services. Just so we clarify the conversation that took place earlier, the budgeted amount, the amount in the budget for this specific expense was $2,187,000. The actual expense, which is 7.1% over the last contract, is I'll just call it 1.95 million. So there's about $237 million budget. I'm sorry, $237,000 budgeted for this cost that will no longer need to be expended for this cost in this fiscal year. Is that correct?
That's going to depend on eligible employees. If they remain the same, I don't know what that.
So I think just gave us a quote. Just gave us the amount. It would change.
But it's dependent on the number of employees. 265.
And employees can opt out of the program, and that will fluctuate. So when you budget, you have to budget as if every employee is taking the benefit. But some opt out of that, and then the cost isn't as high.
Okay.
That's why the numbers vary.
No, I understand. I just want to understand what I'm seeing here on the resolution itself. It has a total cost here of $1,950,072. That's the cost of the one-year contract.
But don't forget, it's not from January to December.
Okay, so it's from June 1 through May 31st. So it still sounds like 12 months to me.
1 year.
Yes, it's 12 months, but when you look at the budget goes January to December.
Okay, so the amount, so we have basically 7 months of this contract in 2018, and those 7. So aren't we paying the entire 12 months out of the 18 budget?
We are. Just the first 5 months are at one rate, and the second 7 months are at a higher rate.
So we already have an expenditure for the first 5 months of this year that's not reflected in these documents.
Right.
And you wouldn't happen to know what those are?
No, not right.
Okay. But for the last 7 months of this year, it's going to be $1,950,000. So there's 237,000.
No.
So the last 7 months of this year plus the first 5 for the next year. right? For that 12-month period, all paid out of the 18 budget.
No, the last 7 months, no. From the period January 1, 19 through May 31st, 19 will be charged against the 19 budget.
Okay, so this resolution doesn't actually tell us the breakdown for fiscal years.
No,
It tells
it
us
just
the
gives you
total
12
contract cost.
Right.
Okay.
And we're paying for coverage, we're making retroactive for coverage that was expired because of the contract that exhausted.
I believe that Mrs. Seeger confirmed this contract expired on May 31st.
Correct.
Okay.
And we're guaranteeing that our employees, anything that they had during that time frame when we weren't covered, they are covered.
They've been covered. They've been covered.
Are there any further questions with regard to this? I think it would be helpful when we have a multi-year contract or a contract that bridges years to understand the breakdown of costs so that those of us who are comparing it to the budget have an easier ability to compare the numbers. It would also be helpful to know that there was an expenditure for the first 5 months of the year too. I think that might have preemptively answered some of Mr. Kelly's questions.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Mrs. Palmieri?
If that's what you want.
Okay. Hearing no other questions or comments, we have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jedenak?
Yes, I count 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. The next resolution on the agenda is Resolution R-18-188, resolution of the Mayor and Township Council of the Township of Rockaway in the County of Morris, New Jersey, authorizing settlement of the tax appeal entitled Highlands at Morris v. Rockaway Township. Would the administration like to present this resolution to us?
What are your questions? This is
Explain, if you would explain to us, I think for the benefit of our newest council member and the public, what this resolution does, why it's necessary, who recommended it. Some of those questions I think are answered in the resolution itself.
It's an agreement for a tax appeal that the assessor and the township appraiser have agreed to settle with the property owner.
So it's a tax appeal by a property owner that's been going, goes back a number of years, back to 2007.
Yep, that's what it says.
Right? And because of a resolution that's passed annually by the governing body, any settlements exceeding $1 million of assessed value have to be presented to the council for review and approval.
Correct.
And this, if you don't have to look at very many numbers on these years to see that is easily exceeded. Are there any questions or comments by any council members about this resolution? I'll just give everyone a few moments to kind of look at it. I believe at the very end of the resolution, I'm sorry, it's at the very beginning of the resolution. The second whereas says that the settlement agreement has been reviewed by the township appraiser as well as the township's assessor. And if you look at the very last page of the resolution, you'll see that Mr. Bell was the attorney involved with this tax appeal on behalf of the township. Hearing no questions or comments about Resolution 188. I will move 188. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Abrahamson. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jedinack?
Yes. Account 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. Resolution 188 is passed. We are now down to item number 10, new business. Item A under new business is a discussion of the best practices inventory. Ms. Palmieri, the CFO, asked for this. You have the floor.
Thank you. This is a program that the state has had in place since 2010, and I will be reporting on the best practices inventory questionnaire. This year there were 61 questions with 2 categories. The 2 categories were core competencies and additional best practices. The core competency questions pertain to our township's website, filing shared services agreements with the state, filing employment contracts with the state, making sure that we're providing adequate reserves for tax appeals and judgments, making sure that our financial disclosure forms were filed by the appropriate employees and that they were filed on time. Also asking if our audits, our budgets, our financial statements, our debt statements were all filed on time. And it also pertained to township vehicle use policies. What they're referring to as additional best practices pertain to exploring shared services possibly with the Board of Ed or surrounding towns, storm preparedness and recovery, redevelopment of vacant properties, economic development, infrastructure, capital improvement programs, exploring various grant opportunities, exploring the idea of purchasing hybrid or electric vehicles, giving employees the incentive to waive their health benefits, which would be a savings to the township, and other employment personnel matters. So this year, like I said, there were 61 questions. There's 4 possible answers: yes, no, prospective, or not applicable. The only way to not get credit for a question is if you answer no. We scored credit for 57 questions, which gave us a score of 93%. This percent allows us to 100% of our state aid allotment that we received for 2018 from the state. This checklist is available in my office if anyone wants to review it. It's rather extensive, and I look forward to any questions if you have any.
Ms. Palmieri, I believe this is, previous years you've actually provided a copy of this. It's a spreadsheet?
It's a document that's online that I can provide. I can place it on the website if the mayor would like me to do so.
Is that a yes, Mr. Mayor?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I can certainly put it on.
And then if you would also notify the clerk so that a link can be sent to the council members so they know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any questions among the council with regard to the best practices inventory? So I believe Mr. Kelly has a question.
We received 93% out of 100.
That's the score, yeah.
Why didn't we receive 100?
There were 4 questions that I had to answer no to.
And which were those 4 questions?
Okay, so I feel like that was hang on.
Off the record, you sound like my father, Mr. Kelly.
And just so you know, this is like a joint effort. I don't take credit for this whole thing. If there's questions that pertain to engineering, I had Allison in with me. I had Pete in with me. I have the administrator in. So it's a joint effort. The first one I had to answer no to was the hybrid vehicles. Does your municipality buy hybrid vehicles in all cases where no hybrid is available that meets your needs? The only way we can answer not applicable is if we don't own any vehicles. So obviously I had to answer no. Do we own any electric vehicles? No. Has your municipality adopted and implemented a more restrictive pay-to-play ordinance than what the state has as a pay-to-play? No, we are compliant with what the state does. And then the last question pertains to health care benefits for employees and officials who work greater than 30 hours a week, whether or not they're taking benefits.
And how did we answer that question?
I answered that no, because we do have one member who is receiving benefits.
Are there any other questions by any of the council members?
In receiving benefits outside of the state plan?
That's not the question. If your municipality has part-time elected or appointed officials who elect to take state health benefits, by virtue of serving in their position since May 21st, 2010, there's the date we were looking for, I have to answer no, because there is one individual who is taking that benefit.
Are there any other questions or comments by the council members regarding the inventory? Thank you for presenting that to us, and thank you to you and Mr. Mayor for agreeing to put that on the town's website. Next on the agenda is for discussion, Resolution R18-199, resolution amending the township's policies and procedures manual. Would the administration like to present what this resolution is, and then we can go into further discussion about it?
This resolution was put on here because to be compliant with JIF recommendations, to receive a discount next year on our policy premium, you have to meet a checklist that the attorney, Mr. Ryan's office, helps me with. We had to verify that we're members of the MEL EPL helpline, that supervisors go under certain training, all employees do an ethics training, we must respect each other in local government. We have to hand out the SEPA notices, and we have to put up certain posters and everything, and update our policies that they recommend so we can have the private coverage. So this was recommended by the JIF. The JIF provided the resolution. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Ryan, you can help me with that? This is what the JIF
Mr. Ryan present?
Mr. Ryan is present.
Mr. Ryan is present.
Good evening.
Okay. Would you like to speak to this resolution at all? If you would, excuse me, Mr. Ryan, no one can hear you back there. If you'd like to come up to the microphone. For the purposes of recording the audio of the meeting.
Good evening. I really don't have too much more to add to what Ms. Seeger has provided. However, I will just emphasize that the JIF, of course, has their series of best practices that they utilize to evaluate what various municipalities are doing, and if a municipality can certify that they are following the best practices as outlined by the JIF, then you provide they provide you with a discount on your premiums for coverage. So Ms. Seeger provided me with the necessary information. I reviewed the best practices schedule that is presented by JIF, and we were able to certify that that indeed Rockaway Township is following those best practices and have brought themselves in compliance with the expectations of the JIF.
And the best practices schedule, is that the checklist that Ms. Seeger referred to?
Correct.
Okay. So the council hasn't been provided with a copy of that checklist to review?
I can provide it after we pass this resolution as the compliance when Mr. Ryan signs it and we send it to JIF. This was the last item that I had to be compliant with.
Okay, but so this resolution contains changes, so it's entitled amending the township's policies and procedures manual.
Just reference to these articles,
Right.
not the whole.
Right, but it's making changes to that document based on this checklist that was provided. Council doesn't have an opportunity to see that checklist.
The checklist isn't a checklist for the policy. These are the policy changes. The checklist is all the different items, like that we went to training, that the chief went to training, that we had the SEPA notice we gave out.
So
this is just one of the items on the checklist.
Okay, so it's different than the best practices that Mr. Ryan was referring to.
This is the best practice.
So the best practices are articulated in this checklist.
Okay, so what we have before us is a resolution with, I'll call them 5 amendments. Some of them are additions, some of them are changes to existing text. Part of the question I'm asking is what was the driver behind the various changes that are here? Is it because the JIF said you really need to incorporate this item, and then here on item number 2, is that item incorporating that into our policy? That's part of what's missing. The other thing is some of these are, by the way, it's about 8 pages, but one of the amendments itself related to the communication media policy is 5.5 pages, and I tried to compare it to the existing policy and procedure manual, and I had a tough time figuring out what changed. And I believe there was at the most recent meeting we had a member of the public. The public has the ability to see this resolution on the town's website as part of the agenda. That member of the public suggested that if you're going to make changes to governing documents, that you have a side-by-side comparison. What is the old, what is the new, to make it as clear as possible to know what those changes are. I did my best to try to compare, but it's very difficult to do that with the changes that are here. So I would like to have that side-by-side for the council so that the council can review that. And if these changes are being driven by suggestions or recommendations by the JIF, I would also like that identified so it's clear to us this is why that change is being made. I also point out that while the resolution is entitled Amending the Township's Policies and Procedures Manual, many, if not all, of the items reference an employee handbook also, which is not the Policy and Procedure Manual. Policy and Procedure Manual is on the town's website. It's dated 2016. I'm not aware of the employee handbook being on the website. I looked.
Ours is combined into one, and it's just a Policy and Procedures Manual.
So if there is only one document, then some of these suggestions are suggesting making the same change in 2 different places. So we would have duplication of a lot of text. For instance, that 5.5 page text, item number 3 says that the Township of Rockaway's email, voicemail, computer, and internet usage policy is set forth in Chapter 6 of its Policy and Procedure Manual and Chapter 2 of its Employee Handbook, which both became effective on March 1st, 2004, are hereby deleted in their entirety and replaced with the following. So that sounds like we're taking Chapter 6 of one document, Chapter 2 of another document, and replacing text in 2 different documents. But what you just said is we only have one document. This also says that these documents are dated March 1, 2004. Policy Procedure Manual that's on our website is dated 2016.
That's when it was first introduced, I think, in 2004. So the latest is 2016.
For the Policy and Procedure Manual?
Yes.
But what about this other document that appears to exist?
They used to have a Policy and Procedures, the other handbook, but they combined it. When Mr. Puff did it 2 years ago, and you approved this same thing, when he did it 2 years ago.
You mean when the governing body voted on the last amendment in 2016?
Yes. And it was the same way, same procedure, and that's how we did it. And then he updated the whole policy book. He had, at a later date. And earlier in the year, he did this. And then we will review the whole policy handbook and do it next year, probably.
Okay. So there is only one document?
Yes.
This resolution references 2 different documents. So I believe this resolution should go back and be revised to reference the single document.
Okay.
And then I would also like the side-by-side comparison so it's crystal clear to us. Yeah, we're referring to the policy manual, right? Policy procedure manual.
Yes.
Not the handbook.
Yes.
The other concern, or an other concern that I have, is item number 7 and item number 8 on page 8 of the resolution. Item number 7 says, these modifications to the Township's Policy and Procedure Manual and Employee Handbook shall take effect immediately. Item number 8 says, a copy of the Employee Handbook, as modified by the foregoing, shall be distributed to all Township employees within 60 days of this resolution. So my concern there is that we make these changes and they're effective immediately, but it could take 2 months for the employees to actually get a copy of it. I believe those timeframes should be closer together to be reasonable from an employment perspective.
Okay.
And then if we look at item number 5, just above on page 8, it references the Open Public Meetings Act procedure concerning personnel matters. There's significant changes in this as compared to what is in the current policy procedure manual, but the portion that I will read, I think is of most interest, is that it says discussions of the governing body of any public body of the township concerning appointment, termination, terms and conditions of employment, performance evaluation, promotion, or discipline of any current or prospective officer or employee shall be in closed session. So that wording sounded familiar, and I looked at the Open Public Meetings Act, which has a set of 9 exceptions to the Open Public Meetings Act. Exception number 8, well,
10-4, that's here.
So it's NJSA 10:4-12, meetings open to the public, semicolon, exceptions. Item B, a public body may exclude the public only from that portion of a meeting at which the public body discusses any, and there are 9 items listed. Item number 8, matter involving the employment, appointment, termination of employment, terms and conditions of employment, evaluation of performance. It sounds similar to that.
Is that violate rights too?
Well, so the Open Public Meetings Act says that a public body may exclude the public, but what we have here is the policy manual, which says shall, which would force the governing body to act a certain way, which is not necessarily what's required by law. And so I would like the administration to revisit that and better reflect the Open Public Meetings Act, because conversations, for instance, the appointment that took place today, if there were any discussion or conversations, that would not be adhering to this portion of the policy manual. And however, perfectly legitimate by the Open Public Meetings Act, and I think we should adhere more closely to the Open Public Meetings Act.
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
The Open Public Meetings Act, if it has to do with the rights notice, that's why it says may, because if the person signs a rights notice to discuss it in public, then you may. But the most policy should be you shall not.
So
Is that right, Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, the presumption would be that it would have to be an executive session, that it would have to be confidential. But I agree that under rights, the employee would have the option to request that it be done in public session.
Yeah, I think
violating the manual then?
If we could, I think that section should be better worded to reflect the notification requirement, rather than stating a certain way that the council must act when it clearly says may in the Meetings Act and it says shall here. I think the focus is on the notification to the employee or prospective appointee.
Yeah, we certainly can go back for clarification with JIF, and again, I don't know if they're relying on some case law that recently came up, but yes, we certainly can do that. We can assist Ms. Seeger in doing that.
Okay, so I've listed my questions and concerns about this. I'm the one who I asked for it to be, I had it placed under discussion. Do any other council members have any questions or comments about this resolution?
I would just like to...
If you could just pull the microphone. Council
just clarify the fact... Oh, wait. Just clarify, are we going to have a before and after comparison? I just want to clarify what we came...
If you're requesting it, I
okay.
will
That's all I want to know. I want to make sure that was...
But I need it on the next agenda. Okay. If you want to postpone it just to the next agenda.
So you have a time frame within which...
I have to do it by December to get the discount for next year.
By December 31st?
We only have one meeting in December.
Is December 31st your deadline?
No, probably...
What is your deadline?
I don't have if
Our next council meeting is on the 11th.
Yes, my
What's the deadline now?
suggestion,
I think we're a little late now, so I'd rather the sooner than later.
so is there a deadline that we must meet by the JIF?
I will ask.
Okay, so please find that out, please let us know so that can be disseminated to the council. My suggestion is that the changes or the modifications you make to this resolution that incorporate the questions and concerns that I had and others had, if you would please provide the updated resolution incorporating that to the council a week before the next meeting, then the council will have that for consideration. Mr. Perone, did you have a question?
Well, I just wanted the council to consider that this is insurance driven, right? They're saying, say this, and we'll give you this benefit premium wise. What I would suggest, and I don't want to step on Mr. Ryan's toes because I'm not involved with this, but I would suggest that whatever changes you want to make, you tell the JIF that you want to make those changes and let them make a determination as to whether or not they feel those changes would somehow subject the township to a higher premium. So at least you'd be able to make that consideration or take that into consideration when you're voting. That would be part of what I would assume that the council would be concerned about. Not to say that I want to step on anyone's opinion, but I think that because this is all insurance driven, it might be a good idea to contact the JIF with the changes that we want to make. They may say that's fine, and we're still going to give you the appropriate premium.
And that's certainly what I envisioned, was to continue a discussion with the JIF about this.
I thought I heard you say that, so I don't see any issue with the administration working with Mr. Ryan to have the interactions with those parties necessary, given the questions and concerns that I and other council members have about this, and to come back to us with what you believe to be a finished product.
I had,
Councilmember Kelly.
What is the projected savings?
Microphone.
What is the projected savings?
It's a certain percentage, and I don't know off the top of my head. I think do you know, Tony?
I do not. It can be a considerable amount of money, so.
Yes.
So since you'll be discussing.
I will send that to you too.
Thank you. And with regard to, did you have more questions?
I did.
I'm sorry.
The only thing is that this whole entire policy, Mr. Ryan, you reviewed from front to back, or just the specific sections that were here in it?
Just these specific sections that were requested to be modified by the JIF.
Yeah. And as I asked previously, if we could be provided with what those requests are from the JIF, it'll make it easier for us to look at the side-by-side comparison, look at the request from the JIF, and look at it and say, yes, it appears to do that. Or if we have concerns, there's time to raise those concerns.
Sure.
Are there any other questions or concerns about this discussion with regard to resolution R18-199?
So are you carrying this to the next?
So provided the council gets a amended resolution that reflects those.
You need to make a motion to carry it?
This is just on discussion. You can simply send it back. So I'll clarify my request. The request is that the administration make, in consultation with Mr. Ryan and the JIF and whatever other parties might be necessary, to make revisions to this resolution and provide that final product a week before the next council meeting for the council to review. Actually, Ms. Seeger, there's already a deadline in place for the administration to provide the clerk with agenda items. So either a week before, whichever one is later. So all right. Let me just simplify it. A week before the next meeting, please provide it and submit it for consideration for the next council meeting as well. And provided it meets with that, I don't see any issues. I just want to make sure there's enough time for the council members to review that and be able to, make further suggestions and make sure there's time for everybody involved to make whatever revisions are necessary before we vote on it on that December 11th meeting. That's all.
I think we should make a motion. Table it.
It's not on the agenda for a vote anyway. It's just under discussion. So we don't have to do anything further. already addressed item C, the American Legion presentation, the Sons of the American Legion, and the mayor's presentation of life-saving awards. The next item is reports. We will start with the council in order of the roll call order, starting with Councilmember Quinn.
Well, I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. And moving on, the Recreation Committee is meeting on December 4th at 7 o'clock here in our conference room across the hall. Christmas tree lighting and the menorah lighting is also coming up. I plan on attending. I believe the menorah lighting is the third.
7 and 9.
Yeah. And the tree lighting is the 6th.
7.
Is it? All right. I have it on my calendar. So I'm glad you do. So I'm also attending the football dinner, which is Friday night. Should be a fun time. Thank you.
Next, we have Councilmember Friedlander.
Just one attended the regional school board meeting, and they are one step closer to signing their agreement with their teachers. They just they agreed on it, and they're just going over it both sides to make sure everything is there that they get. Hopefully December, I said. That's it.
Thank you. Next is Councilmember Palumbo.
On Sunday, the 18th of November, myself, Mayor Puzio, and Councilwoman Smith, we attended the Interfaith Thanksgiving celebration at White Meadow Lake Temple. It was a good evening of meditation, and it was a good evening to attend. Got a lot out of it. That's it.
Thank you. Next is Councilmember Smith.
Yes, I was going to tell you that we attended that as well. It was a very nice program, and it was a great feeling of togetherness. I attended the planning board meeting on November 19th, an application 2363 for parking lot services at 42 Maple Avenue for amended prelim and final site plan was approved, and the next planning board meeting is on Monday, December 17th. I spoke to Mrs. Seeger. Brian Cower of our Parks and Recreation has been in touch with the borough regarding the collaborative effort of decorating Park Lake for the holiday season. I believe it was determined that it's too late for this year, but next year they will be placing tentatively, this is lighted decorations on the lampposts. This year, however, Rockaway Township did decorate the gazebo with lights, and we put some wreaths, and I don't know, Mrs. Seeger, you want to elaborate on that at all?
No, you're doing a great job. We put two lighted wreaths at the entrance to the gazebo, put lights around the gazebo, and put a wreath around the clock, thanks to DPW who did the work.
So it's a nice start. Anyhow, it'll be a little festive. That's it.
Thank you. Next is Councilman Sackett.
Just a couple of things, Council President. When we were talking about new business, you quickly went into reports, and I had a couple of things on new business. Usually you go around and ask. Could I go back to that, or should I talk about that during my reports?
If you have new business like you'd like to bring up, since I missed that, if that happens in the future, you can always just say, Council President, I'd like to add an item of new business. But since we missed that, if you have an item of new business you'd like to discuss, then feel free to do that as part of your report.
Okay, a couple of things. We were supposed to do an appointment, hopefully tonight, of the tax collector, just like we did appointment last time for the town engineer. Same process, and that was taken off the agenda. We were also supposed to discuss Resolution 18-185, which you also took off the agenda. So, Council President, you keep taking stuff off the agenda, and I'd like a chance to be able to vote on this stuff at the meeting. You keep taking it off. Please stop taking stuff off. If you want to take it off when we're at the meeting, that's a different story, but you keep taking it off. We never have a chance to talk about it. So that's why I want to talk about my new business. Now on to my reports.
Okay.
On November 15th, I attended the JCP&L tour with Councilman Kelly. And it was a very good tour, actually, right before we had the snowstorm. And we learned a lot about the different operations that they do and a lot of stuff that they have coming up. So it was a nice day. Also, I wanted to congratulate our new mayor, Mayor Puccio. It was great seeing him last week sworn in. And I also want to congratulate our two new Board of Ed members, Larissa Smith and Tanya Shields as well. On November 13th, I attended the Citizen Recreation Committee meeting. One member has resigned and there's currently an opening. Anyone interested, please reach out to our new mayor. And that way he can be able to fill that position. There was a nice presentation that day by the soccer program about some grants that are available to us for some of our fields and some other stuff that they're currently working on. I want to thank Cub Scout Pack 165 and Jeffrey Zoller for presenting me with their Community Leader Award on Tuesday, November 20th. It was a great meeting with a great group of kids, and I hope they learned something from me, myself, as a member of Cub Scout Troop 113, growing up in Rockaway. It was great to come back and speak to the next generation of Cub Scouts. This Saturday, December 1st, at the Ford Face House will be the Victorian Christmas party, 1 to 3 o'clock. On Monday, December 3rd, like Councilman Quinn said, will be the Hanukkah celebration at 7 o'clock right here at the Municipal Building. Next Friday is the Christmas tree lighting, 7 o'clock. On December 8th is the White Meadow Lake Holiday Party, so anyone that lives in the lake, I look forward to seeing you there. And lastly, I just wanted to wish a happy Hanukkah to all who celebrate starting this Sunday. Thank you.
Next is Councilmember Kelly.
I have a couple of things. First and foremost, I think our two newest elected officials that have gone into different positions. Mayor Puccio, congratulations. You serve very well as a councilman at large, and I'm sure you do the same as a mayor. And as well as Mr. Jackson, being a former school board member, along with Mr. Puccio.
Councilmember Kelly,
you did a great service as a school board member, and I'm sure you're going to do a phenomenal service as well as a councilman at large. So congratulations to you as well. A couple of things I have here. I wanted to say thank you very much. I contacted the DPW yesterday about a concern on Durham Road. We had an overflow of water going across the road, eroding the dirt road on Durham Road, and they fixed the culvert and cleaned out all the ditches in the trenches over there, and they did a phenomenal job. The individual that had contacted me had stated that the DPW always does a fantastic job on Durham Road, where it's asphalt, dirt road, and maintaining it, and they had never had an issue like this since Sandy. So he was giving out the accolades to our DPW, and even the rapid response they did, he was very appreciative of it. I also want to mention tree sales. We got Christmas tree sales coming up. We have them at Lake Telemark Community Club, and we also have at the Legion. So come out and support your local communities that are there. They go for a good cause. Also at Lake Telemark, we're doing a collection for Toys for Tots. That it also involves clothes. We work with an individual with the schools that gives us some information about some families that are in need, and we select those families and we pass out those toys for them before the holidays, and offer treats as well to assist with them. Sadly to mention that we've lost 2 more younger adults to heroin overdose, to habituates, and one was in a former resident in Hibernia, and we had another individual that lived up in the Marcella area. Again, it's a problem, it's an epidemic. There's a lot of issues that are out there, and if you know anybody, you can pass them over to Hope One. I believe that Mayor Puccio also has some foundations that he deals with with the opioid crisis that we have, and I'm sure he can give out that information as well. So if you know anybody, please pass that information along. It's definitely a serious problem that we need to attack as far as we can. They've taken some of my wind out of this with December 1st at the Fort Fascia House. It's actually 2 to 4.
You changed the time?
Yeah, I believe so. Mrs. Seeger gave me
I
the
took it off the
before.
internet, so maybe I...
And then the Hanukkah is 7 to 9 on the 3rd, and as well as this Christmas tree lighting is on the 7th, between 7 and 9. And I think the one other thing, Mrs. Seeger, I had dealt with Mr. Darren over at the school library about donating or giving them the garage back here over to the library, so they have a storage facility for some of their furniture and other items that are there. I don't know how that's moving forward.
I was waiting for your email,
Mr. Darren was going to email you and provide the zoning application permit that I had hand-delivered him to fill out in order to have them moving forward.
I don't think I have.
Okay, I'll follow up Mr. Darren on that. And there'll be donated materials and labor to repair the small damage that's there in order to have them utilize it for that. And if you just keep me updated when they're going to come.
Yes.
We still don't know that yet.
No, I was, yeah.
From Amway, right?
Right, but I think you were going to send me a letter that you were going to do it, and that you needed to know 3 days' notice, and I was going to provide that to Mr. Sheehan.
Do we have a notice when they're coming?
No, not yet.
And then the last thing is, have we had any updates with regard to the sewer assessment in Bowlbyville?
Nothing to report tonight.
The one question I do have that we didn't discuss, do we know if all of the individuals connected to that line are paying a maintenance fee?
I do not know that at this time.
Okay. No other question.
Councilmember Kelly, do you recall when that report was requested?
Well, I think it was in September.
There was no date that I had to have it done. I said I would work on it and get it done as soon as I could, since it is 25 years old.
And how much more time do you need right after 25 years?
Is that all?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kelly. Next is Councilmember Jackson. Okay. Thank you. Next is Council Vice President Abrahamson.
I just want to thank you. I just would like to send my, I don't see anybody here, but Mrs. Seeger, you'll extend my gratitude. They came out and took care of some serious drainage issues. I'm sure Allison may have been involved with that also on McKeel Drive, a couple of major drainage issues, and of course their wonderful response to all the last storm we had too. It was awesome. Other than that, I just wanted to piggyback on Mr. Kelly's Hope One. Not only is Hope One for the addict, it's for the families. So if you know of a family member that is dealing with the addiction of another loved one, Sheriff Gannon will even, you can hook them, send them to me even, and I can provide you with his phone number. He will take their number, he will talk to them personally and get them involved in his program. So it's not only for the addict, because it doesn't just affect the person under the addiction, it affects the whole family. So it is for everyone involved. So I just wanted to just clear that up too. And I want to wish everybody a happy Hanukkah that celebrates. Unfortunately, I won't be at the celebrations. I have prior engagement this week, 2 different dates. So enjoy, and thank you. Nothing else to report.
Thank you. Thank you to all who responded to the Route 80 fire, who were honored earlier at this meeting. Thank you to the Sons of the American Legion, as well as the American Legion, for their service and the service of their families, and for their donation that was presented earlier. Congratulations to Mr. Puzio on becoming mayor in his first meeting as mayor. Congratulations to Mr. Jackson on his first meeting as at-large council member. And happy Hanukkah to all who celebrate. Mr. Mayor, you're next.
I just wanted to ask for a little courtesy from the council as a whole. and it's in reference to the appointment of the tax collector. I know that was pulled off the agenda. I know that the council, excluding Councilman Jackson, had received the resume. And I just wanted to answer, you had an email Pat, Ms. Seeger, our business administrator, with a couple of questions. So before you say no or yes, I just want to give you a little bit of background, answer some of the questions that you had emailed her about.
Mr. Puzio, is there any reason why those questions couldn't have been answered in the email where they were asked?
Ms. Seeger's been very busy lately.
And we'll talk more about that later.
Very busy.
And I did answer the first 2 emails.
Did you answer?
I answered the first 2 emails, and that one came, I didn't have time.
Can I continue?
Please.
Okay. I think it's important that we move the position along. We lost our tax collector. She resigned, went somewhere else. So we have someone working in the position currently. And the former tax collector was making $95,000. We want to bring this current one in, somebody who's an employee here already. We want to bring her in at $80,000. What we did is we went out, we put out a posting on the Daily Record and the website. And that went from 10/31 to 11/15, 16 days. The closing for the posting was 11/15. There was 5 applicants that submitted. Only 1 was certified, and that is the in-house candidate that I wanted to appoint tonight. It's an important job. I think part of what I'm trying to do is always nice having people in-house get promoted. It's good for morale. It's good all the way around. But what's most important here is that she was the only certified person. Tonight, prior to our meeting, I sat down with Ms. Seeger. I got here a little bit earlier. We took a look at some surrounding towns to see comparable salaries, especially for the size of our town. And we are coming in substantially lower than some of the other towns. I think we struck a balance. I checked with Ms. Palmieri and with Ms. Seeger, and they agree on the salary.
Yes.
We feel that it's fair. So I'm just asking for your consideration tonight. So she's doing the job so that we can get the position filled.
Is that all? Mayor Puzio, who comprised the interview committee?
That would be Ms. Palmieri, Ms. Seeger, and then it was followed with myself.
Thank you. So the reason that, well, one of the reasons that this appointment was not on the agenda was because the questions that I had asked that I thought the council should have answers to were not answered. And I don't think they were difficult questions to answer. We now have a situation, we have a new council member who's just joined, and I think that that new council member should have an opportunity to review the resume and all the qualifications. So this appointment will appear on the agenda for the next meeting on December 11th.
Fair enough. I just want to let her know that.
Also, with regard to appointments, the code requires that the appointments be made by the mayor and be submitted. I haven't actually seen any document or email from the mayor, you or the previous mayor, making that appointment. So I haven't seen it. If they're not making their way through, Mr. Mayor, if you would just ensure that if you're making an appointment, that there's some document that makes its way, that's from you, through the appropriate channels to the council so that we have that to review.
I think I sent a letter on the behalf of Mr. Puzio that you all got a copy with the resume, and it said on behalf that Mr. Puzio wanted to make this appointment at the next meeting, and he hoped you would consider it, and I sent it with the with her resume.
Okay.
And I sent that to everybody.
Okay.
Did everybody get it? I sent it by email.
That would likely be Wednesday,
I sent it on November 20th.
Or Tuesday the 20th. Yeah. So it is.
Please find a resume for Corey Gardapi, the mayor's recommendation to the position of tax collector. The mayor anticipates making the appointment on Tuesday, November 27th at the regular scheduled council meeting and request the council consideration of the same. Should you have any questions or additional questions, please contact us. And I answered 2 or 3 emails that you sent me, Mr. Jeniak. I don't remember off the top of my head. and the last one came in, and I said, and I sent all the answers to everybody on the council, and the last one I did not answer is right. But that information was on the,
And Mr. Mayor, so the code says the appointment comes from the mayor, so if you would just ensure, whether it's an email from you.
Just appoint her. So I give her, I authorize her to send that letter out on my behalf. So, but you're telling me that it's going to be on the next, I'm requesting that. You're telling me that it's going to be.
It'll be on the agenda for the December 11th meeting. And the other issue that I had is that we got the resume on Tuesday a week ago. We had a long holiday weekend, right? People are traveling, et cetera. There's not a lot of time for interaction between the council and administration with regard to that.
Not a problem.
So, okay.
I have one more thing.
I just have a question.
Mr. Freelander, did you have something you wanted to say?
No.
Okay. Mr. Kelly?
Was the certification required as part of the application?
yes.
So we had 5 applicants that didn't have a certification applied anyway. Did we entertain those applications?
We accepted them, but we didn't interview with them because they didn't meet the minimum
So
requirement.
you only actually interviewed one person?
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Puzio?
I have one more thing. I just want everybody to know that safety and security for our community, for our employees is at the forefront. In my mind, and I know as far as the council goes and our administration, it's been a sad turn of events in the country with shootings at municipalities, at schools, and what we're doing now to help in that area, besides some of the programs that we've been working on, Stop the Bleed programs in case some of these incidents happen, is our police department, for all of our employees, are going to be doing ALICE training on December 13th. And that's going to encompass all of our township employees. And what ALICE is alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. And what that is it teaches our employees if someone were to breach the building, if somebody were to come in, how to best deal with these types of situations. So we are doing everything that we can to help our employees, to help our citizens in this area, and in many different ways. Some programs in the community, we hope that they grow. These types of programs get traction, and as time goes on, everyone gets trained, and they take a hold in Rockaway Township in case something unfortunate happens. And that's going to take place on December 13th. It's all municipal employees, and Lieutenant Shear from our police department will be affording the employees that training. Thank you, that's all I have.
What was that date, Mr. Mayor?
December 15th.
December 13th.
Mr. Kelly, did you have a question?
I did. Mr. Mayor, would it be a good idea perhaps if we were to reach out to our schools and see if they could be a part of that training?
They already are.
They do their own.
Yeah, they do their own, and they actually bring in our police department.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, you didn't ask about it, but Councilmember Sackett did, about proposed resolution R18-185. I have an email as early as November 1st and also November 5th requesting additional information from Ms. Seeger with regard to that. So the sooner we get that information, the sooner that can get on an agenda.
I'll speak to Mr. Sack.
No, it had to do with the resolution.
Ms. Seeger.
It had to do with the resolution to change the contract not to exceed amount for the professionals. I sent all the council the local finance notice, an explanation for why we do it, and in January, when we give out the not to exceed amount in January, you're guessing, an educated guess. And when you go through the year and you see that an attorney for the Board of Adjustments or the tax appeals, they had more appeals than we anticipated in the beginning of the year, so the amount we pay them for the year will be more. So that's why those were done. This has been done, if you look at the last 4 years, the same way, Mr. Jedniak, you've been on the council. We have adjusted this, I think, 3 times last year to the different people, and it's just a normal part of the business that you need to do for purchasing so that you are in compliance.
So I have your email from November 2nd in front of me. The increases are because of an increase of work above what was originally estimated, and because some of the charges paid this year were actually 2017 billings that were carried over to 2018. So part of the information I requested from you is which costs are 2017, which are 2018, and what is the reason for going over the amounts. That is the information that we are waiting for. So
some of that information you have from Ms. Palmieri provided you all the attorneys and their
So have we been provided, Ms. Seeger, we've not been provided with all of the information related to that resolution. So the sooner that all of that information is provided, the sooner the council can consider it, the sooner it can get on an agenda. Okay? Is there anything else, Mr. Mayor?
No.
Okay. The next item we have on the agenda, item number 12, which is a closed session for the benefit of our new council member, our newest council member, the public. If anyone has any questions about how closed sessions work, I'm just going to explain how it works. Meetings of this governing body must be open to the public. The governing body cannot meet or take any action except in a public vote out in the open in this room, which is recorded on the audio system that we had issues with earlier today. That is required by law. I referenced the Open Public Meetings Act earlier. I referenced the NJSA 10:4-12 exceptions to the Open Public Meetings Act. There are 9 exceptions, and the portion of the meeting where those items will be discussed, only for those reasons can the council go into closed session. They are stipulated in a resolution, which is Resolution R18-190, which is both on the website and over on the side table. And it states the 3 issues for which we're going to go into closed session. Minutes are kept of the closed session, and the minutes of the closed session itself are made public, and I believe it says it in the resolution itself. I don't have it immediately in front of me, to the effect of the minutes we made public at the conclusion of those items. Some of the examples of items which we can go into closed session for, which, well, I'll read what we are going into closed session for at this meeting. Resolution R18-190, resolution authorizing an executive closed session in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6, to discuss item number 1, confidential security issues, item number 2, collective bargaining agreements, and item number 3, proposed health department shared services agreements. The items 2 and 3 were requested by the administration, and item number 3 is related to resolution that's listed as item number 13 on the agenda. We have to go into closed session so that we can discuss that item before we take a vote on that. We have to come out of closed session to take that vote. And typically closed sessions will happen at the end of the meeting. We're having it as close to the end as we can have it while still being able, we still have to come back out and still conduct business. So that's why the order is what it is. So for closed session, when we vote to go into closed session, we take a recess generally, and we allow the public to vacate the council chamber so that we can have that closed session. Then following the closed session, we open the doors back up, we reconvene, we go back on the audio, and then when we are done with, then we continue back in the open session. If we have further business, which we do have further business tonight, we continue with that business until we finally adjourn, which is all takes place in public on the audio. And if for whatever reason you can't stay through the rest of the meeting, you can always request the audio, and you can listen. You'll hear the audio stop when we go into closed session, and then you'll hear it continue and start up again and continue thereafter. So that is how the closed session works for the benefit of the public, as well as our newest council member. At this time, I'll ask for a motion for closed session, resolution R18-190. Motion by Abrahamson and second by Sackett. Typically, when we have motions and seconds, we have discussion. The first item that we have on here that will be in closed session is confidential security issue. Mr. Puzio and Mr. Perrone, I see you having a side conversation there. I think you're going to want to hear this part. We're having discussion on R190. The first item in closed session is confidential security issues, which is related to, if you saw the papers yesterday or today, there was an incident that took place with technology in the town, so I asked for this to be placed on the agenda so we could discuss that. We have members of the Technology Advisory Committee, which were appointed earlier this year. I see Mr. Brennan, who's the chair of the committee, in the back. Right? Can you identify yourself? Yeah. Mr. Wigg, I see in the second row. Are there any other members of the Technology Committee that I don't see? Mr. Friga? So we have 3 members of the Technology Advisory Committee, and those who don't know, Mr. Brennan, well, first of all of our IT committee members, bipartisan committee, both parties are represented, are all IT professionals and IT security professionals. Mr. Brennan is the chair. Mr. Brennan is well known through IT security circles throughout the state and the state of New Jersey. He holds a credential, a cybersecurity credential, which is a globally recognized credential. It's the CISSP. And it's known as the gold standard throughout the world for cybersecurity, IT security. So I'm going to invite those 3 members of the Technology Advisory Committee to join the Council and Administration in the closed session unless there is an objection from the Mayor or the Administration. Is that okay?
It's an objection.
You're objecting, Mr. Mayor?
Absolutely.
To the committee members joining?
No, I'm objecting that they join in.
Yeah, that's what I was confirming. You're objecting to their participation in the closed session.
Correct.
Would you object to just the chair of the Technology Committee, Mr. Brennan, joining?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to be just the council and administration.
Okay. So, Mr. Brennan and IT Committee and Technology Advisory Committee members, we have an objection. Is there anything that you'd like to say on the record before we vote and go into closed session? If you do, just come up to the microphone if you have anything you'd like to say. Mr.
I'm also going to ask for certain members of our administration that are up here not be included as well.
Okay. Mr. Brennan, if you could just state your name for the record.
Sure. Tom Brennan, 6 Stonebridge Court, Rockaway, New Jersey. Thank you for asking me to come down. So just on record, of course, not only am I on the Board of Adjustments as the Secretary for Rockaway Township, I'm also on the CERT Committee, and I'm also volunteer for the IT Technical Committee since January. I think it's actually interesting that, we have a committee. We put my name and other professional names on the website as representatives of the town, and then we don't include them in any of the IT discussions that are relative to either issues, breaches, or even proactive conversations around the town's security. I feel that that's sort of a very interesting conversation, and if you're going to provide authority and responsibility to council members, to committee members, and you're not going to have them involved in conversations that are infecting the citizens and the PII data in the town, then you should probably dissolve the committee. Thank you.
If I could also add, Mr. Brennan and all the members of the Technology Advisory Committee have all been sworn by the clerk's office to serve on that, and as Mr. Brennan mentioned, he also serves on the Zoning Board of Adjustment as well as the town's CERT.
So here's my employee badge for Rockaway Township. I resigned effective today. Good luck with the town, guys.
If there are any, Mr. Puzio, did you have a comment on it?
I did. I appreciate his credentials, and I think that once we go into closed session, you'll understand why we're taking actions that we're going through. They're based on legal issues and reasons, and I have our town attorney here. He'll best be able to explain it. It's not to slight Mr. Brennan, his credentials, or any of the IT people. I appreciate anyone who wants to volunteer for the town. Absolutely. It certainly isn't to slight anybody. I believe that you will all understand once we go into closed session why we're taking the actions that we are. They're based on sound reasoning, and I also have a law enforcement background, and I bring that to my position as mayor and as the council, and they're based on, the process that we're going through is based on reasoning and legal issues.
Okay, we're about to call the roll to go into closed session. Do you have a question that is, Mr. Kelly?
And, I believe Mr. Brennan is not only recognized throughout the state, but the state police. And I would just question, though, Mayor Puzio,
Do you have any background in cybersecurity? Oh, okay. The way you were talking about law enforcement, I didn't know if you had, I feel that Mr. Brennan, as well as the other members of the IT, would have way more knowledge and ability, especially in this sensitive issue here, than all of us combined.
To do what?
Okay.
To discuss anything with this issue that occurred.
I do have a background in investigations and how to properly conduct them, and how an investigation is conducted, and the components of it, which kind of goes over, as we talk about global or accepted standards. I do have an understanding of how investigations are put forth and the need for confidentiality and all of that stuff. But there's also...
All the members of the committee serve for free as volunteers, and they've all gone a step further to agree that they will not act as vendors for the town. So they're not looking to sell us anything. They're strictly here because they live in this town and they want to assist. So with that, clerk, if you please, I'm going to call the roll. We need to go. We're going in.
I just want to make one suggestion so the public is comfortable that we go into the conference room as a whole and they can sit here. Does that work? Is that right?
Go for it.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith? Yes. Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yeah.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson? President Jedinat?
Yes, we will recess to the conference room across the hall and reconvene once we're done there.
She's fearful. She's still fearful. Every 2 years.
We are back in the session. Thank you to everyone who decided to stick it out after this closed session. We have on the agenda R18-192 authorizing an amendment to the 2017 to 2019 professional public health services agreement between the Township of Rockaway and the Township of Jefferson. Can you hear me? I'm just going to repeat what I just said. We're back in open session. We are at item number 13, Resolution R18-192, authorizing an amendment to the 2017-2019 Professional Public Health Services Agreement between the Township of Rockaway and the Township of Jefferson. I'm using my discretion as Council President to remove this from the agenda. The next item we have is open to the public. We have an open to the public list. First on the list is Kathy Kramer. Ms. Kramer, if you are in the audience, please state your name and address for the record. Next on the list is Mr. Patrick Dio. If you're here, please state your name and address for the record.
You left.
Next is Frank Jekyll. If you are here, please state your name and address for the record. Next is Deborah Linnell. If you're here, please state your name and address for the record.
She's left.
Next is Pat Degnan. Please state your name and address for the record. I'm sorry, before you continue. Open to the public. Sorry, it's late. Ordinance 2-5.14 requires that any comments or questions made during the public portion of a council meeting must be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any individual council member. The failure to comply with this ordinance may result in the termination of any further opportunity to address the council at that session. All speakers must first be recognized by the council president before speaking. All comments are to be directed to the entire council as a whole, not any individual members. Speakers have 5 minutes each to speak per Township Code 2-5.14. At the conclusion of 5 minutes, an alarm will sound indicating that the speaker's time has expired, and the individual speaking is expected to immediately relinquish the microphone so that the next individual may speak. Failure to adhere to these rules will result in the council president using the gavel to reinforce adherence to the rules and when an individual's speaking time has expired. If at any time a speaker ignores the gavel or refuses to relinquish the microphone, the sergeant at arms is directed to assist the individual in relinquishing the microphone and removing the individual from the meeting as necessary. Ms. Degnan,
Okay.
please state your name and address for the record. And
Pat Degnan, 88 Valley View Drive, Rockaway Township. I have one announcement I kind of want to make. The auxiliary of the White Meadow Lake Fire Department is holding a breakfast with Santa on Sunday between 9 a.m. and noon. It's not, reservations are not needed anytime between those hours, and we'll be happy to serve you breakfast this Sunday, December the 2nd. And if you want to contact me and make reservations, if you have a big group, that's fine too. The other question I have regards the approval of minutes of a closed session. It kind of boggles my mind that council people are asked to approve minutes from a closed session when they haven't been given the minutes ahead of time. I have a disabled son. He doesn't sign anything until he reads it. How can they be asked to do this?
thank you for your comments. Ms. Degnan, just to answer your question, again, closed session draft minutes are provided to those council members who attended the closed session. There are many reasons why a council member might not attend the closed session, including the fact that they're conflicted out of attending. If they're conflicted out, they also should not be, I mean, if they're given the draft of that, they would be given the draft of something that they're conflicted out of. When we vote on the draft, it then becomes public. So in that circumstance, a council member doesn't receive those draft closed session minutes, and in the roll call, they should abstain on that, and then once it's public, then like any other member of the public, they have access to that. That's why that happens, and that's been the practice for the 6 years that I've been here. So there are many reasons why a council member doesn't attend, might not attend, but that's the explanation for that.
If I can just add to that, Council President, I'll be
Mr.
quick.
Kelly.
It's also, Mrs. Stegman, is that when there is a matter that we have that's in closed session that we talked about, whether it be litigation or whatnot, it's really not until the litigation of the matter has been resolved and it's over to where those minutes then can be open to the public and be distributed, and some certain things would still be redacted. So until that litigation is resolved, I'm making an example, even though the minutes are completed and approved on those who participated in that meeting, like an example, on the 20th of September, Mr. Sackett wasn't part of a meeting that was closed session. For him to receive closed session minutes to approve, and he cannot review those minutes because he couldn't participate in it, whether he was absent or he was in conflict, until that matter has been resolved. So that's how that works. I know it seems a little bit confusing, and I understand your question on that. There's a little bit more to it, and the legality of that, for that. It's not something that's just been happening in 6 years. It's actually something we have to follow in an Open Public Meeting Act as well. So,
if I could also add, we have audio recordings of these meetings. So if you miss a regular council meeting as a council member, you can request the audio from the clerk's office, listen to it, and then you can actually be informed enough to vote on regular meeting minutes for a meeting you weren't at because you listened to the audio. If you choose, you could also abstain on that. There's no audio of closed session meetings. So there's no opportunity for someone who didn't attend that meeting to inform themselves.
and that relates to board meetings, planning board meetings, and Board of Adjustment meetings as well, Mrs. Stegman.
I won't speak to any other
It
ones.
just boggles my mind that they're asked to vote on something that they really can't vote on.
Well, they would abstain.
So you're right. You have the option to vote yes, to vote no, or to abstain. And hopefully, council members are aware of that. And if they aren't, those of us who are here have now heard this once and can be aware of it. Thank you. Next is Kim Kleindienst. Please state your name and address for the record.
She left.
Okay. Next is Lisa Salberg. Please state your name and address for the record. Next is Patrick Egan. Please state. Thank you. Next is Jim Waters. Please state your name and address for the record.
Due to the late hour, I yield my time.
Thank you. Next is Emily Coleman. Please state your name and address for the record. Okay. Next is Barry Silberger. Please state your name and address for the record. Okay. That is the end of everyone who had signed in. If I'm now closing it to the public, is there a motion to adjourn?
Did you sign since we missed
I
the
don't
line?
need to sign it. It was not a sheet out here to sign
Since
in.
we have a lot of no-shows?
Yeah.
It's 1:20 a.m. Are you sure you want me to continue? You sure we want me to continue? All right. I will reopen the public portion, and Ms. Gregg, if you'd like to state your name and address for the record.
Okay, I'm glad this is being recorded, so it's on record that you glanced up, saw who I was, and decided to promptly close it to the public when you were starting to say if anyone else from the public wanted to speak. I take that personally. I don't know if you paid attention. I know you were down in Atlantic City. Welcome back. I hope you had a nice meeting. I'd like to congratulate Michael Puzio, Mayor. Sorry for it's a doozy of a meeting for you. Thank you for serving, and like to welcome the new person that came in. I'd also like to put you on notice, as well as everybody else here, that it is against, I would urge you to read the Open Public Meetings Act in thoroughness. Google it up. I only, if somebody has, actually the attorney, if you'd be so kind to clarify the Open Public Meeting Act regarding open to the public, meaning no carve-outs for special interest groups or different categories of people from the public to speak, such as those that have signed any sort of list. It's exclusionary, not inclusive. It's open to the entire public. No other town, it doesn't matter that no other town does it. You're not following the law, and I'm putting you on notice that you are, once again, for the 6 months that I have been observing it, and you can go back further, it's $100 the first time. I don't know if that goes to each and every one of you, so serving on the council, but the second time is a $500 fine apiece. I don't want it to come out of my taxes. We've had enough problems with this council trying to take money out of our pockets. But it's $100 for the first fine and $500. And the people that do those fines are the Attorney General and the prosecutor's office. Okay, so if you really don't want to have any more complaints going to them regarding what you're doing up here that is illegal, which we covered thoroughly at the last meeting with Mr. Kelly was presiding over. I apologize. I was calling you Mr. Tucker at that meeting. I apologize. I sincerely was not paying attention for your last name. But for the new person coming in, we may not be following Robert's Rules of Order anymore, but we're supposed to be by law following the Open Public Meetings Act. So I'm assuming that this meeting was advertised within the time frame in 2 different newspapers that had the capabilities to publish. And I'm also I'll explain it to you, open and public. The whole point of coming up here and serving is a meeting with the public. And the open part is where we get to come up. We don't have to sign a list, particularly a list that's been exclusionary and collected at 2 minutes before the meeting actually starts. Okay, so once again, it's observed on film. People are watching. It got picked up at 7:28 or 7:29 tonight. You need to open it up to everybody, and until everyone's been offered a chance to speak from the public that wants to. And it is the late hour, but I implore you, if you're not aware of this law yet, I've talked to you individually and I talked to you as a group since January. The fee is getting up there really high. You're familiar coming in with this. I brought it up last month. Mr. Tucker, we went through it thoroughly about the list being exclusionary. If you read it, I read it today, I pulled it up. The fines are $100, and then it's $500 for every time. And I don't think it goes to our town, which it should, because we need lessons in the Open Public Meeting Act and how to conduct meetings with it. So it's really kind of serious. So are you all going to claim that you know nothing about this list and you're all okay with this list continuing? Because it's not legal. It's not. It's exclusionary. No, there's no town ordinance that you have to get here before the meeting starts to get on your special private people that you're allowing to speak list.
Mrs. Gregg, just Mr. Kelly, Mrs. Gregg still has time.
would like an apology, and I would like to hear from each and every person on the council and the attorney who's filling in for Mr. Iacofano, as well as the business administrator regarding their awareness of the Open Public Meeting Act. Are they read it and are they aware of it? And do they go to other town council meetings where there's a list of any sort? Each and every one of you have obviously attended other council meetings other than just the Rockaway Township meeting, right? You applied for this job. So I'd like to hear from all of you. I'm not addressing any individual. Is there anyone up here who's been to a different council meeting other than this one? Because like we mentioned last time, we're not a bunch of monkeys, see what one does and do the same thing without understanding why you're doing it. You have an obligation to understand the jobs you're doing and to understand Robert's rules, the OPM rules, and to follow them. And we found that the new clerk, who's new and has a learning curve, isn't always giving the right answers, and that the scheduling of these meetings, we begged you to have them in places that were large enough to accommodate everybody, so it wasn't standing room only and having to worry about the fire chief. I can keep talking, but I'd rather have answers now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. A couple of items, Ms. Gray. Number one, this council has not sought to take any money out of any taxpayers' hands. In fact, this council cut over $1 million of wasteful spending this year. Number two, with regard to your, where did I make that note?
Is that everyone who understands how a budget works? Because Mrs. Apinson said she didn't understand it.
We're close to the public, so if you would please step away from the microphone. I won't ask again. Thank you.
Do you want me to ask a question?
If you have a comment, feel free, but there is.
I do. You know, Mrs. Gray, I appreciate every time that you come up here and that you're able to be part of the participation in the open public portion. And you continue to cite the Open Public Meeting Act. What is the exact citation that you're referencing to that we need to review and look at with regard to what you state? I'm asking you that question. Go ahead. You're not going to answer me?
I've been thrown out enough times. I don't want to.
I can assure you that's not.
Do you want to answer your question, Mr. Kelly?
That's
like not a rhetorical question.
No, I would like to.
Ms. Gregg, feel free to answer Mr. Kelly's question.
I asked the attorney to read it. There's an Open Public Meeting Act. If you read it, it's very clear that you have to have an open session without excluding anybody regarding a list. You cannot make up BS laws. That's my citation. If you'd like to take this to court, Mr. Kelly, I will be happy to retain an attorney. You're going to challenge me on this. You are violating the people of Rockaway Township's civil rights. We do not need to come here before a meeting even starts to be allowed to speak.
Mrs. Gregg, you were able to come up and speak. You came later than the commencement of the meeting. You didn't sign in. There was courtesy that was given. You were able to come up here and speak. Nobody deprived you or disenfranchised you of having your portion of the open public meetings. I was only simply asking you, since you seem to be so well versed in the Open Public Meeting Act, I was only asking you what specific section of that would you want us to look at and identify, as you indicated, it's disenfranchising you because of the sign-in sheet. It's a simple question.
Okay, I will provide it for you. My phone is charging right now, but I do have the exact number on it. I believe it's near the same number where you lost in court regarding the...
I don't believe so.
Yes, it says open to the public. You must allow anyone in the public who wants to speak to speak. Why don't you pull it up on your phone and read it then, Mr. Tucker? Mr. Kelly.
Council members should not be using their cell phone.
I'm only asking you because you seem to be so well versed with it and identify.
I pulled it up and I read it today, and it says that you should not be excluding the public.
That you can cite to us.
Mr. Kelly, if I need to hire an attorney to talk legalese with you, I am letting you know that I'm putting you on notice that you are violating something that's a $100 fee the first time and $500 each time after that by the Attorney General or the Prosecutor's Office when they investigate.
Can I just ask you one simple question?
You can ask me a simple question. Yes. I don't know. Ask Mr. Jednak if it's allowable.
I'm going to reluctantly allow this conversation to continue.
Were you able to participate in the open public portion tonight?
Not with ease. No, I was not. I was intimidated.
Participate to the open public portion tonight?
I don't know. Mr. Friedman and Mr. Sackett, was I allowed to without your intervention tonight? Do you think that would have happened?
Well, intervention or not, were you allowed to speak? I mean, you're at the microphone right now for a reason.
You're there. I mean,
are you taking advantage of your opportunity to speak at the open public portion?
Maybe not?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Thank you, Mr.
We are now closed to the public again. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Abrahamson, second by Sackett.
Joy.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Oh, yeah.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
You skipped me.
I'm sorry. Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
President Jedenak?
Yes. 7 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. Meeting adjourned.